The hospital corridors were always buzzing with footsteps, beeping machines, and the hushed whispers of worried families. Amidst the chaos, Clara moved quietly, her scrubs neatly pressed though visibly worn from constant use. She was a young nurse, devoted to her patients. Yet her own life was marked by silent struggles. Money was always tight, as most of her paycheck went toward supporting her younger brother and paying off medical school loans. Despite this, she carried herself with grace. Her smile a gentle light for those who needed comfort in the sterile walls of the hospital. Her favorite patient was a little girl named Lily, who had been admitted after a complicated surgery. Clara stayed by her side whenever she could, adjusting IV lines, reading storybooks, and even bringing small paper flowers she crafted during her breaks. Lily's laughter always made her forget her own exhaustion. Over time, Clara grew close not only to Lily, but also to her father, Daniel, a quiet man with kind eyes who never left his daughter's bedside. He noticed the way Clara treated his child with the tenderness of family, and gratitude began to grow in his heart. Daniel worked as an architect, but since his wife's passing a few years earlier, his life had been consumed by work and fatherhood. Dating had been a thought he'd long buried, his focus completely on raising Lily and keeping his emotions guarded. Yet, in the quiet moments when Clara comforted his daughter, he saw a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He noticed her tired hands, her patched-up shoes, and the way she never complained. He admired her strength, even though she didn't realize how deeply it shone. One day, as Clara adjusted Lily's blanket, the little girl giggled and whispered, "Daddy, you should ask Nurse Clara to go out with you. She makes you smile." Clara blushed, quickly brushing it off with a laugh. But Daniel couldn't shake the thought. He had been watching her carefully, seeing both her kindness and her hidden struggles. He wanted to thank her in a way that was more personal than words or flowers could offer. He wanted to let her know she deserved to feel special. Still, he hesitated, afraid of crossing the line between gratitude and something more. Clara's life outside the hospital was far from easy. She often skipped buying new clothes just to stretch her money further. When her colleagues spoke about dinners, concerts, or dresses they bought for special occasions, she quietly listened, never admitting that she hadn't bought anything for herself in years. One evening, a coworker invited her to a charity ball, but Clara politely declined. She knew she couldn't afford a dress, and even if she could, she wouldn't have felt like she belonged in such a glamorous setting. Instead, she spent the evening studying by candlelight when her electricity briefly cut off. Daniel, meanwhile, couldn't ignore what his daughter had said. He found himself thinking about Clara on his late drives home. He admired her courage, the sacrifices she made without complaint, and the joy she brought to Lily. One evening, after a long day, he approached her in the hallway. "Clara," he began, his voice gentle but sincere. "You've done so much for Lily and me. I was wondering if you'd consider letting me take you out sometime." Clara froze, caught off guard. No one had ever asked her like that before, not in years. Her first instinct was to refuse, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't imagine what she would wear or how she would afford even a simple evening. She looked down at her old sneakers and replied softly, "That's kind of you, but I don't think I can." Daniel, noticing her hesitation, smiled reassuringly. "I don't need fancy. I just want to spend time with the person who's given my daughter so much happiness. Even if it's just coffee in the park, I'd be honored." His sincerity touched her, but she still felt the weight of her insecurities. A week later, Lily was discharged, and Daniel stopped Clara before they left. He handed her a small box, wrapped with plain brown paper. "Please," he said, "don't say no until you've opened it." Clara opened it later that evening in her small apartment. Inside was a simple but elegant dress, the kind that looked timeless rather than extravagant. There was also a handwritten note. "You deserve to feel special. Will you be my first date since I lost my wife? Clara's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever gone out of their way for her like this. She tried the dress on in front of the cracked mirror in her bedroom. For the first time in years, she didn't see just a tired nurse struggling to make ends meet. She saw a woman, graceful and strong, worthy of being cherished. The thought of being someone's first date after such loss humbled her deeply. She realized this wasn't just about her. It was about healing, for both Daniel and herself. Her heart whispered yes, even before her lips could. When the evening came, Daniel picked her up at her apartment. He didn't arrive in a flashy car, or with over-the-top gestures, just a smile that made her feel seen. They went to a cozy little restaurant by the water, the kind where string lights hung from the ceiling, and music played softly in the background. Clara was nervous, fiddling with the hem of her dress, but Daniel made her laugh within minutes. For once, she allowed herself to forget about bills, long shifts, and worries, and simply enjoy being in the moment. The night was filled with stories, laughter, and shared silences that felt comfortable instead of awkward. Daniel spoke of his late wife with respect, never bitterness, and Clara shared pieces of her life she usually kept hidden. They realized they weren't two broken people, but two souls learning to trust again. For Clara, it was a reminder that she was more than her struggles. For Daniel, it was the spark of life he thought he'd lost forever. When he walked her home, Daniel stopped at her door and looked at her with gentle eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for saying yes. Tonight meant more to me than you'll ever know." Clara smiled, her heart racing. "It meant more to me too." For the first time in a long while, she went to bed with hope blooming in her chest. The loneliness she had carried for so long felt a little lighter, replaced by something tender and new. In the days that followed, Clara returned to her duties at the hospital, but something in her had shifted. The same patients, the same routines, yet she moved with a newfound glow. Daniel would visit with Lily for check-ups, and their conversations stretched longer, their smiles warmer. Clara no longer avoided the thought of being cared for. She embraced it, slowly but surely. Their bond grew over time, not rushed, but steady. Daniel didn't try to replace what had been lost, and Clara didn't try to be someone she wasn't. They simply walked side by side, step by step, discovering the joy of companionship. For Clara, who once thought she could never afford even a dress, she now realized what she truly deserved was something far greater: love, respect, and the chance to be someone's reason to smile again. And for Daniel, who thought his first date after tragedy would be impossible, he found in Clara not just a partner, but a gentle reminder that life, even after loss, could surprise him with beauty. That night, when he first asked her, wasn't just about a date. It was the beginning of healing. For both of them, and for the little girl who saw love where they had once seen only struggle. It was proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the most extraordinary beginnings.